customers, I think, more often want something that can fit into the fabric of their lives. This is Keys to the Shop, episode 502, How to Deliver a Meaningful Customer Experience. Well, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFirio, and I am your host for the show. I've been your host now for 900 plus episodes of the show. That's including our shift breaks, etc. It's been almost 8 years of doing Keys to the Shop, and I'm so thankful for all of you who support the show. Great way to do that is subscribe. You can subscribe on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. You can subscribe basically anywhere you enjoy podcasts. And by the way, that includes over on YouTube, where we are making meaningful and I would say small but consistent efforts to build up the community on YouTube. I have aspirations. I've got plans for YouTube, but best laid plans, and we're busy doing a lot of other stuff, but it is cool to see a lot of you listening on that platform as well. Now, sharing the episodes, of course, on social media, always appreciated, and rating and reviewing the show. If you love what we do, give us a 5-star rating and review. Just a few seconds to do so makes a huge difference. And yeah, so one thing that I do a lot of, and this is where I spend most of my time, not only in the running of the podcast, but coaching and consulting one-on-one with coffee shop owners and operators, whether you're brand new and need guidance to open your first shop, or you're an experienced coffee shop veteran and you are looking to refine your operations and to bring in an outside perspective to see what you might not be able to see because you could be too close to it. And there are a fresh set of eyes and a lot of experience might help you improve your culture, improve the operations and the quality of what you do. Keys to the Shop has worked with over 65 different companies and individuals over the course of the last 7 years to help them thrive and to build a thriving business. So if you're interested in reaching out to have a conversation, just email chris@keystotheshop.com. If you're on Instagram, just DM me at Keys to the Shop, and we'll set up a time where we can have a conversation and hear about what's going on in your world and how Keys to the Shop Consulting can help you. Again, that's chris@keystotheshop.com. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Ground Control at groundcontrol.coffee, as well as the Pacific Barista Series line of plant-based performance beverages. More on both those wonderful companies and products later in the episode. But for right now, I want to dive into our conversation, which is about customer experience. And to me, the word experience, we need to give our customers an experience, is in the same vein as the conversation we have about sustainability or innovation. When we use that word, it can mean a lot of different things, and oftentimes what it ends up meaning is the least helpful form of the word. So sustainability ends up turning into, we've got recycled cups. It's not about systems and processes and structures that actually lead to a reduction in waste sustained over time. It's more like we've checked the box of purchasing something that has the word sustainability attached to it. Innovation is the same kind of thing, where it's largely relegated to the realm of technology, where yes, we love computers, we love digital interfaces, we love, pressure profiles and scales and the drip trays and everything else that's really fun. The tampers now, my wrist hates tamping, but my mind still likes tamping. I hope that makes sense as an old guy in coffee. But gosh, I'm kind of jealous of all these baristas that get to not experience the bone-crushing pressures of literal pressures of tamping coffee the way we used to. And if you still do that, by the way, you don't have to tamp as hard as you think. Go see Gwilym Davies' old European coffee trip video about tamping, and you'll find out quickly that the whole bathroom scale with 30 pounds of pressure and all that stuff is not really a thing compared to the pressure of water coming down on top of the coffee. anyway, not to get into that, but the whole idea is innovation has been largely relegated to technology, but it doesn't fall often into the realm of, or at least as often as it should, business structures or organizational structures and the kinds of innovations that there are companies out there doing it. We talk about Pachamama and the farmer-owned supply chain that they represent. And I know Paso Paso, I think, does the same thing now. And it's catching on, or it's been around for a while, but it's also something that's getting recognized more and more. That's innovation that is not about computers or machines. It's about people. And it's unfortunate when we talk about innovation that we largely just have a fascination with the tools, but not with the people behind the tools. And as this podcast goes out, I'm sure, and more conversations happen, that balance will be achieved at some point, hopefully, or maybe not. And this conversation around customer experience is going to be similar to the kinds of views I have toward those other two subjects, which is when we talk about customer experience, what our mind does is we skip to the most readily available, fascinating, shiny thing that that word represents, because naturally, like water, we go to the path of least resistance. And for us, that means something that is like a novelty. It is novel. In other words, it's not usual, it's unusual, it's weird, it's out there. I mean, there's nothing like this in our community, and people are going to be like, wow, what an experience that was. And that is fine. That is cool to have some experiences out there. But one of the things that we miss when we talk about experience is what the customer wants when they go into the cafe. And what might be the most sustainable, innovative, and meaningful experience in a coffee shop is the experience of having your baseline expectations met by that coffee shop. We are at a point now in the industry, I think, where we assume that that's what we're doing and that we can skip to the part where we're doing weird things when we're not even doing normal things well. We haven't perfected a cappuccino between 4 or 5 staff over the course of 1 week, and we're already thinking of the weirdest signature beverage we can possibly think of. I'm not saying you shouldn't have a signature beverage, but don't call victory too soon. We have an amazing opportunity in front of us as professionals in the coffee shop. And in episode 500, we talked about the important role the cafe plays in the larger scheme of what happens in the supply chain, the value chain, and how much of a linchpin the experience a customer has in the cafe is to sustain the continual purchasing of and support of all the people upstream in that value stream. And we drop the ball so often because we forget what game we're playing. We're dropping the football and going for a baseball right in the middle of the game. We have to understand that mainly what our job is to meet the needs and expectations of a customer whose sole purpose in being there is not necessarily to experience the whimsy and novelty of whatever your right brain ends up concocting. It is simply to meet a baseline expectation of care in consistent simplicity over time. And then after that has been established, after that level of trust that you are the kind of place that cares for them, now they're going to start caring about what you care about. This is the kind of thing that happens when your friend is into, a TV series or a kind of sport or board game, and you yourself are kind of like, I'm not into that. But I am your friend and I will play this game with you. And at first it feels like pulling teeth. You're just like, whatever. And then all of a sudden you realize, hey, I enjoy this. And the reason why you enjoy it is because you trust that person. You enjoy the company of that individual and you gave it a shot. If we want people to pay more for coffee, if we want them to enjoy different processes, or we want them to start to acclimate to different kinds of varieties of coffee that are more climate change resistant, and they have a profile or a taste that takes some marketing to get used to potentially, then what we have to be doing is innovating ways to build and sustain trusting relationships in the most simple of ways with the most simple of beverages across all our staff and all the hours that we are open in our cafe. Every time you say, come on in and have coffee, you are making a promise to the customer that the coffee they get will be what it was yesterday and the day before, and that it will be to your utmost standard, that you say, hey, this is what a cappuccino looks like at fill in the blank cafe. And when there is a shift down in that quality, you erode trust. You need to build up what we call trust credit with the customer, where now when you need them to give something a shot, maybe literally, they will, because, hey, this is my coffee shop. I like them. I'm going to try that thing. I'm going to, I don't normally pay this much for a bag of coffee, but I will, because everything they do is so good. Everything that they do, including the first things that I wanted them to do, which is the stuff I liked, and they didn't make me feel bad for it. They didn't try to force me into whatever signature beverage they thought was truly a novel experience. They actually focused on the experience that matters, not the novel stuff, but the experience that pays the bills, the experience that is all focused on hospitality and caring for the baseline human needs of the customer, not the need for validation as a specialty coffee professional and all the stuff that sometimes we act out in our cafes, where we sometimes create menus as a way of proving to ourselves that we can achieve something against the wishes of our customer base, maybe just because we want to, and it's like, it's what I like, and I'm going to force them to like it. And the fact that they're buying it means they like it. And as I've said in a past episode about data and how the metrics in the data can lie to you, just because somebody purchases something from you does not mean that they enjoy it. Sometimes people feel bullied or shamed into buying something, or they feel cajoled into doing so because they have this social pressure around them. We've created these spaces that put people under a microscope, where it is so well branded and so clean and so efficient and beautiful. And I'm not saying you should have a inefficient, ugly place that's unbranded, but we have to appreciate how much of a gap there is between the average Joe and the place that sells the Joe, and the kind of mental gymnastics that a customer has to go through. That's the customer experience. Again, we are operating under the delusion that we've graduated past the basics, and now we get to go opening freaky concepts out there that are just so off the wall because we've gone past that place where we're just serving good coffee to people. Who wants to do that anymore? That's not fun. That's not innovative. That's not a unique experience. Customers may like a unique experience, but customers, I think, more often want something that can fit into the fabric of their lives, not something that just stands out and makes them itch. It's something comfortable. It's something that can either be focused on or not. It can fade into the background and be brought into the foreground. That's what coffee is. And we can give people options in our cafes to have novel experiences or basic experiences. But if we're not focusing most of our energy on doing with excellence the most basic of things that a customer attributes to a good experience, then we have no business creating these stranger, more novel experiences. Hey everybody, this is Chris, and we will be right back to our episode talking about customer experience. But I wanted to talk to you a bit about our sponsors today, starting with Ground Control. You can find out more information about this wonderful brewer over at groundcontrol.coffee. And they have been for years now elevating expectations of batch brew coffee with the Cyclops brewer. Their new brewer is smaller than the Cyclops. It's beautiful, just like the Cyclops brewer is. And like the original brewer, this ground control machine can also produce the concentrates of espresso and cold brew to make batched iced lattes and batched cold brew alongside amazing batch brew coffee. So it's kind of this great all-in-one machine that is engineered to create efficiency across the cafe. So if that sounds interesting to you and you want something that will elevate the quality of your coffee and create these concentrates that'll create more efficiency across your bar, then check out Ground Control again over at groundcontrol.coffee. I also want to talk to you about the Pacific Barista series, the line of plant-based performance beverages created for baristas and tested by amazing world-class baristas. Before it even reaches your shelf, it stands up to the heat from steaming, produces amazing texture for latte art. It's also balanced in its flavor so that the coffee is always the star. They put so much love into this product intentionality, and they are a huge supporter of the specialty coffee professionals that use their products. So check them out at pacificfoodservice.com, get samples and try it for yourself. And if you're looking for the best plant-based beverages for your cafe, look no further than the Barista series from Pacific. Okay, with that, let's get right back to our episode on customer experience. So what do we do with this information? The thing that I would encourage us to do, and this is you individually, as you look to see, hey, what am I serving? What am I focusing on in this next year? Start to make meaningful steps toward consistent excellence in the most basic of your beverages. And the way you do that is you go in and you observe. You see, is everybody making the most basic of beverages very, very well the same way every single time? And are the customers getting the same level of hospitality, head up, confident, good, caring service every time? And if the answer is no, that is where you innovate. That is where you look to improve your customer experience. That is where you're going to actually stand out in the market. And I don't mean to be, cynical and salty. I am from upstate New York originally, so hey, whatever. But how you stand out today, there are so many people that are hardly even trying right now in the world of customer service and hospitality. It's those of us who make a sustained forward effort to pay attention to those details that are people first details. And by the way, this applies to your employee experience just as much as it applies to your customer experience. All you have to do is decide, I'm going to try and I'm going to apply that effort and that energy that I have to spend every day. I wake up, I eat breakfast, I have a cup of coffee, I got some energy, how am I going to spend it? And if you're spending that money or that energy rather on these far-flung concepts that you're hoping are going to differentiate your coffee shop, but skipping over the basics, assuming that you've achieved them, then you're fooling yourself. But just by doing those little things, you can stand out in a market that's saturated with apathy and assumption that we've already done it and that we can get by on branding. One of the things that's true about today's environment of coffee is we are hyper branded, but we are not executing on the promises that we give our customers through our branding. How we cover that up is we just brand even more. We market even more until people are just so, it's like this deafening white noise. It's like when a garbage truck passes by, you can't hear somebody talking next to you. And they're like, hey, have you ever noticed that these drinks are kind of inconsistent? And then the garbage truck of marketing comes by and drowns out those thoughts. And it kind of like stops the conversation. Of like, it's not that we're inconsistent. It's just that, you don't get it. Or, oh, don't look behind the curtain. Look over here at what we're doing. We're at a local event. Aren't we awesome? And we're doing the signature beverage. And one of our people just won an award. And they're like, oh, yeah, that is cool. Anyway, what was I talking about again? Oh, that's right. Your cappuccinos are really inconsistent. Or, oh, that's right. Everything's always broken in the bathroom. And then we distract them again with more novelty. So is novelty and creating these unique experiences truly necessary? And is it wise to do so if we're not also focusing and maybe mostly focusing on achieving the basics very well every day throughout the cafe across all staff and all hours of operation. It's questionable to me. I think we rely on these things to sort of distract ourselves, because I've encountered this many times, even as a manager myself. I've succumbed to this temptation to keep yourself busy doing odd jobs and different projects and learning about far-flung ideas to avoid having to deal with the thing that you just don't want to do, but you know you have to. And maybe it's the conversation you don't want to have, or, this thing seemed more fun. It seems more fun, so let's do that. Let's have our customers do a coffee tasting and teach them about cupping and teach them about latte art and put tons of energy and effort into that. Nothing wrong with that, but shouldn't we be spending that energy and time doing the basics right first? And then we can say, hey, this thing is humming. We are actually achieving this high level of service and hospitality across all of our operations. Let's start these classes for customers. That'd be fun. It's novel, it's fun, and it's not like we are misappropriating our energy. It's not something we're using to distract ourselves from the stuff we know we need to do, but we kind of don't want to do. It's actually going to be in addition to what we already do very well. That's where these unique experiences, I think, really can be an asset to the business. So as we talk about customer experience, even if your concept itself from the ground up, it might be that you create a coffee shop experience that is so unique just from the beginning. It's business plan started. It's an omakase style thing. It's a slower thing. Even in that, there are baseline customer expectations that need to be the heart and soul of what you do. And of course, the experience itself, by dint of its business model, will be unique. But what is universal across all cafes, unique though they may be, is the human need for good hospitality, being acknowledged, welcomed, included, recognized, cared for, being made to feel valuable, delivering consistency in the small things, meeting and exceeding expectations. And that's how whatever the thing is you want to do is going to succeed in the future. It's only going to be based on whether or not you do those things first. So let's not get it out of order. Let's not skip over that stuff and assume that customer experience is always this strange and novel thing. The most innovative, and it turns out the most sustainable innovative thing that we can do today is to do the basics with excellence consistently, and it will lead to more successful, unique things in the future, rather than just a race for novelty with a crumbling foundation. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. And I'm curious, of course, about your thoughts here. This is the craft. This is, like we say, the craft of operations. It doesn't happen overnight. It is a sustained effort. It requires a team. And, this is exciting stuff to take on. And if you are inspired by this episode, that's the kind of direction you're going to head in your cafe, I'm excited for you, because I've seen it so many times, whether it's with people whose story I get to hear on the show or in trade shows or clients that we work with. The journey of the basics done well is one that transforms businesses, teams, the customer's perception, and it leads to the kinds of things that we hope novelty will bring, but is available to us mostly in the things that are right in front of our face. So if you have any questions, comments, or feedback about today's episode, go ahead and email chris@keystotheshop.com. That's also where you can reach out for any information about Keys to the Shop consulting. So I want to draw your attention to something. Our friends at Arto Brick on Instagram, Arto Brick, and also arto.com, they manufacture, design, and curate unique hard surfaces for one-of-a-kind places like yours. So you're looking at some really amazing brick and tile and stonework. All of your hard surface design needs can be met by Arto Brick. It's a beautiful story. Their company is steeped in tradition. And when you go to their website, arto.com, and just look at the work they've done, it's going to be like mind-blowing. I so appreciate the service they provide and the artistry, the craft and quality. Reach out to them, DM them on Instagram, again, at Arto Brick, and mention me. Just say you heard about them from Keys to the Shop and Chris sent you over. And yeah, wonderful stuff over there at Arto Brick. And with that, that is the end of our episode, everybody. As always, thank you so much for being here and supporting the show. Don't forget to subscribe, share the show on social media. Have an awesome day. And as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.